Good morning, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon for those online as well. Thank you for being with us. We will move on with our third panel, and our focus with this panel today is going to be on education initiatives and challenges for women. And we have 4 speakers. We will run the recordings as we've done before, and then we will open it for questions and answers for after we complete all the presentations. Thank you. And Huda, will you please start the first one? Thanks.
Record.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I want to say Alhamdulillah, thanks to God the Almighty that have given us the opportunity to encounter in this event, either in person or virtually through the internet. Thank you to the committees of the Symposium on Education in Muslim Societies, Women's Scholarship in Education, Pedagogy, Policy, and Development. Thank you also for choosing our proposal to be presented in this good event. We hope that this issue will attract the attention of Muslim community in the world to improve the quality of education. Before presenting, we would like to express our condolence and grief for the earthquake disasters that hit the city of Marrakesh last September. Ladies and gentlemen, my colleagues and I, Hayadin from BRIN, Retno Listyarti from Federations of Indonesian Teachers Union, and Mr. Ilman Hasjim from Indonesia Supreme Court has taken several discussions to prepare these presentations, with the title is Early Marriage and Female School Dropout in Muslim Societies, a classic problem with different causes in Indonesia. Why this is important? As an introduction, most of Muslim countries are underdeveloping countries, and it is risk of early marriage. Indonesia is one of the Muslim countries with the high rate of early marriage. In the late report of UNICEF said that India is #1 of country with high early marriage, and then Bangladesh, and then China #3, and Indonesia at #4. In early marriage, women face many consequences, mainly loss of opportunity to get a decent education and decent skills for life. Women's school dropouts still frequently happen nowadays, even though the schools are near. Some theoretical basis of the study. Both Islamic law and human rights law share the core value of ensuring equal rights and opportunity for both males and females, especially in the domains of education and life advancement. Marriage in Islamic jurisprudence is permitted after anyone reaches the age of puberty. Indonesia Marriage Law #1, 1974, the age of marriage was permitted at the 16 for girl and 19 for a boy. And then in the law #16, 2019, the age of marriage was permitted at the age of 19 for both girls and boys. So there is shifting from 16 to 19 for girl. The prevailing social construct historically designed that boy as the primary beneficiaries of proper education. Okay, there are many published literature articles and books that explained about school dropout, and women early marriage. But however, there are still rare documents focused to explain the women's school dropout and early marriage. So this is the two issues we will discuss in these presentations. So we focus on these two questions. Number one, what factors have been contributing to the increasing trend of early marriages in the contemporary age of Indonesia? Number two, how was the early marriage affect female school dropout in Indonesia? To answer these questions, we used primary and secondary data, focus group discussions with teachers in school, headmasters, parents, and students to find information and data. Okay, here is the findings of our studies. Dropout rates in the last 5 years, but let us see the last 3 years after the stipend policy introduced in Indonesia. In the last 3 years, in 2020, there are 5,247 of women dropped out. In 2021, there are 4,500 of women drop out. In 2022, there are 4,561 of women drop out. The next data, this figure explains about the number of applications for underage marriage dispensations. In the last 3 years, we can see that there is still a high rate of early marriage. In 2020, there are 64,196 of underage marriage dispensation applications. In 2021, there are 62,913 of underage marriage dispensation applications. In 2022, there are 52,094 of underage marriage dispensations application. Yeah, however, there was a possibility of hidden early marriage recorded in court office, in religious court office. The other findings show us the triggered factors of women early marriage. There are cultural, pregnant out of wedlock, parental concerns of avoid adultery, low level of parental education, worried about something undesirable happening, promiscuity and lack of parental supervision, violate Islamic law, already closely related, worried about falling into disgraceful behavior, avoid public slander, have often slept together, reduce economic burden, and running away from home with their partners and boys and girls out of parent supervisions. Okay, the other findings, pregnancy out of feeding was one of the triggers of early marriage. This happened not only in remote area, but also in the cities, even in Jakarta as the capital city of the state of Indonesia. Female pregnancy students carry a heavy burden compared to the lesser responsibility experienced by their male counterparts. Parental, teachers, and school became reactive and blamed the students, boys and girls, who experience adultery. Parents make the decisions to marry off their daughters early for two primary reasons. One, to prevent pregnancy out of wedlock, and then the second, to ensure compliance with religious doctrines. Okay. From the descriptions of finding Bab, several important conclusions from the study was, the first, until now, we stated that women's opportunities to obtain the decent education still face problems. This is not caused by the school being far from home or because schools are scarce as it was a long time ago, but because of early marriage. There are many contributing factors. One of the most related to the religious manners is worried about their adult daughters committing adultery. Marriage is a solution to avoid adultery, and the adultery itself had been contributed to the early pregnancy and lead to early marriage. Those women who experience early marriage search for informal ways to continue experiencing education and get skill for their life. Okay, this is the presentations of my team. Hopefully it's useful and we ask for response from participants and audience. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Merhaba and hello and welcome to all the participants at this year's Women in Education Symposium. I'd like to thank James for inviting me here to speak about my topic. My name is Bushra and I'm a postgraduate student at Ibn Haldun University, completing my master's in sociology. My topic deals with private schools in Turkey and specifically the kind of transformational paralysis that I've witnessed and seen in my research when dealing with these schools. Okay, so before I get right into the work, I'm just going to show you some pictures quickly and I want you to bear with me. This is a staff picture of a school in Turkey. It's a very prestigious school. And here's another one. Okay, and this is the staff complement of this school. This is another school in Turkey, and this is another school. Okay, so I'm just going to stop here and ask this question. Do you think that this is indicative or representing Turkish society? If you asked me this question, I would say no, because Turkish society doesn't look like this. In fact, Turkish society looks a lot more like this. Okay, these are public schools. This is the staff complement of 4 different random public schools. And in public schools, you'll find teachers with scarves. And in a lot of private schools, you'll find teachers without scarves. Why? What's going on? My thesis is actually an inquiry into the marginalization of hijabis in the Turkish private sector. And I'm looking at why this discrimination has been allowed to persist, despite Turkey being a Muslim majority society. Yes, it is secular, but why have we been okay with this discrimination for the past, I don't know how long. In 2011, the ban on scarves was lifted. So 10, 12, 13 years. Why has nothing changed? So I go deep into the attitudes of the private sector, specifically education, and I came across some interesting things. But first, why has it persisted for so long? Okay, to understand this, I'm just going to give you 3 main streams and explain that in detail. So historically, when the Ottoman Empire wants to modernize, okay, towards the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, what they start to do is they start to emulate European models, okay? And the rising new elite that rises up, you know, when the Sultanate gets abolished, they send their children to private schools, okay? These private schools were previously missionary schools, so they, you know, missionary schools have the agenda of pushing Christianity towards the population, and also they consisted of foreign schools. What there used to be in Turkey or in the Ottoman Empire was the madrasa system, where you would learn normal school subjects as well as Islamic studies as well. So these children, generation after generation of these children, are exposed to different incentives than the Turkish child, the average Turkish child, and they have different ideals. So what the school promises is this the attainment of a European life, the attainment of having European values and languages, and being able to travel Europe and to study in Europe when you complete school. And this is very appealing to the Turkish elite, and so begins a long process of generation of students actually going through the system. Okay. Then we get to the cultural power and paralysis situation, where we have Bourdieu explaining that the elite actually determines the cultural power within a society, and how this happens is because the elites, because they determine the educational structure, the institutions of a society, they also therefore by default control cultural power, which is the dominant ideology in society. And this becomes a cycle that can only be broken by a new elite. Now, I want to stop here and go back to the historical overview, because these elites have, the elite that was formed after the Ottoman Empire then goes on to rule Turkey until 2007, when a new power comes into play. And the new power is not looking towards Europe as an ideal. So this is a long time, and this is part of the reason why it's been so ingrained within the old elite. Okay. Anyway, now I'm going to come back to the third perspective, which is the feminist perspective. This can also be looked at as a human rights issue, because the chosen ideology, which is laicite, which is the most extreme version of secularism, fundamentally it undermines the principles of freedom. And it also violates women's rights. It violates the woman's right to choose what she wants to wear. Okay? And this argument is brought forth by Sabah Mahmoud, and we can see it as well. In today's France, we saw recently the abaya being banned in schools. And there was huge unrest because of that. And also we saw unrest in Turkey when the headscarf was banned. Let me just go back quickly to the historical overview again. During the time that the new Republican elites ruled Turkey, twice they banned the headscarf and all religious symbols from the public sphere. And this was devastating because this is a Muslim society, and Muslims were not allowed to listen to the adhan, to wear the scarf in public, in hospital. You couldn't go to school with a scarf. I mean, there was just a huge uproar about this twice. It happened twice in our history, okay? So, like Sabah Mahmoud says, what this does is it actually creates huge divisions in society. Okay, this extreme secularism. Then what I did was I focused on why this is going on for so long, and I also tried to understand what was the thinking of these schools. Was it just a kind of, you know, hating of religion, or was it something else? And these are some of the extracts of my interviews that I did with I did interviews with teachers, with parents of students, and with managers and recruiters as well. The one in the middle stands out to me so much because this girl went to the interview. She was highly qualified, by the way. She had a good job in Qatar for 20 years. And she applied with her CV, and immediately the next day she got a call back. And then when she went to the place, they took one look at her and they said, sorry, we do not do hijab. Just like that. And, you know, when I heard this, I could just feel myself, you know, relating so much, because this happened to me as well. And this is the reason why I did this study, because I realized that it was a problem with a lot of Muslim females who wore the scarf. And it just struck me as so odd that this was allowed in my country, that's a Christian country, South Africa, and it wasn't allowed in a Muslim country. It was quite eye-opening for me as well. So the literature of this phenomenon is actually quite it's quite old and outdated, because most of the researchers focused in the years when the ban was in place, but not many. I found one study that focused on the post-ban effect, and this was done in 2022, 2021, 22. It was done on the private sector and the banking private sector. And what these researchers found, they found that women who wore the scarf would not only get turned down for interviews, which is what I'm discovering as well, but they were also, they were not given promotions. They were delegated to the back of the bank, some of them, and just plain open discrimination when they would find out that the woman wore a scarf. And then a seminal study done in 2011 by Dilek Chindo, she done a study on the effects of the ban, mainly. And what she found was that even though this was a public banning of the scarf, it led into the private. So veiled women in Turkey were discriminated against in the private sector as well. And now we just sit with the private discrimination, but also that they are discriminated by their gender and by their religion, which is a double whammy, actually. So my methodology, I did a two-pronged approach here, because I discovered that recruiters didn't want to speak to me because this is their job, and obviously they don't want to put their employee in a precarious position or anything. So I did get some interviews with them, but what I mainly discovered through them was that the recruiters were just used to try and sift out teachers who were religious or not. And by religious, I mean those who wore scarf, who were obviously religious because of their scarf, or so assumed. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do this differently. I'm going to use visual sociology as well as qualitative in-depth interviews to kind of get a sense of what's going on. The visual sociology that I use is basically on the internet. All schools have galleries, and in their galleries they have the staff photo. And from these photos, I could look at hundreds, even thousands of them, and try to see patterns of whether or not, they were employing teachers with scarves. I can tell you that about 90% of the private schools that I looked at were not employing women who wore the scarf, except for very newly opened Arabic schools. And by newly opened, I mean within the past 10 years. They accepted women with the scarf, teachers with the scarf. And then I did the in-depth interviews as well. These are still taking place, but as they're taking place, it's clear that there is a discrimination. It's clear that they are using underhanded tactics like putting CVs with pictures or using recruiters. It's clear to me as well that the Islamic schools that do accept teachers with a scarf pay much, much lower and are not at the same level as the private schools that do not accept scarves. And it's clear to me that they also do not wish to change. Now, interestingly enough, I spoke to some parents as well, and they said, because I'm a teacher myself, I spoke to many parents, five formally, but many informally as well. And parents would always tell me they did not mind what teachers looked like. It was actually the content and the knowledge that was important to them. So I feel as if these schools do not want to do research as well and find out what parents prefer, because what the recruiters told me was that the management of schools told them, we don't want teachers with hijab because they look too religious, and our parents don't want that. But every single parent that I've spoken to has told me that's not a problem at all. I need to delve a bit deeper in that because it could be that because they know me, they told me that, but I've never heard of parents actually having a problem with that. Because again, the teacher is there to teach the curriculum and to ready the child for the work environment and for life in general as well. So that's just a quick recap of what I just spoke about. Of course, this has been shortened for the presentation, but I go into much more depth within my paper. And I just want to leave you with this thing, with this little quote as well. There should be one goal for the educational system, and that should be to lead and to prepare children to enter careers and to become productive members of society. School should not be a place where we impose our ideologies on students. Please feel free to contact me or at my university. Thank you so much.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Jaladeen Jemeela from Sri Lanka, PhD candidate ISTAC, International Islamic University of Malaysia. My research topic, Education Achievements of Students in Single-Parent Mother-Headed Families, a critical study on selected secondary school in Sri Lanka. Introduction of this study, the family is crucial in determining children's educational development and future possibilities. The typical family unit, which consists of two parents living together, has changed over time, giving rise to a variety of different family structures. Single parenting today is a result of divorce, different types of separation, having children outside of marriage, or the death of one spouse, leaving the roles in the hands of the single parent. These households, which are frequently headed by mothers, confront particular difficulties that may significantly impact their children's academic success. The educational achievements of students are not only an individual accomplishment, but also a reflection of societal values, opportunities, and support systems. While extensive research has explored the multitude of factors influencing students' educational outcomes, the experience and challenge faced by the students in single-parent mother-headed families have not received adequate attention, particularly within the context of Tamil medium secondary school in the Kegalle zone of Sri Lanka. This research endeavors to address this gap in the exciting literature by embarking on special study focused on the understanding the factors that shape the educational achievement of the student in single-parent mother-headed families. By delving into the unique challenges faced by these families and their children, this study aims to shed light on the complex interplay of socio-economic, culturally, psychological, and educational factors that affect student performance in Tamil medium secondary school in the Kegalle zone. Objective of this study to examine how a mother's education level influences children's educational attainment in single mother-headed household. Second objective, to find out the extent to which a mother's occupation contributes to the children's educational attainment in single mother-headed household. Third objective, to determine the extent to which mother's household income influences children's educational attainment in single mother-headed household. Questions of this research: how does mother's level of education in single mother-headed household affect on children's educational attainment influence? How does the mother's occupation contribute to the children's educational attainment in single mother-headed household? How does the mother's household income affect children's educational attainment in single mother-headed household? Literature review. Several literatures are there. Influence of single parenting on people's academic performance in basic school in one municipality. This research find out most students from single parents home have minimal parent involvement in their academic activities. Single parenting has a negative impact on students' academic performance. Another research from Nigeria, impact of the family on the academic performance of secondary school students in Yawa local government area of Ogun State, Nigeria. There is a considerable difference in academic achievement between pupils from single-parent household and those from two parents. Another research from Tanzania, challenges single parents that students face education attainment Morongo municipality. This research find out the issues such economic hardship, lack of parental care, lack of socialization, lack of guidance and counseling, and lack of emotional support in single parent families led to poor performance and dropout of the students. Another research from Tanzania, Nigeria, single parent families and their infection on children, a study of Amazon community. The study find out younger children face greater problems than children who are a little bit more mature due to their trauma they face. Methodology of this study, quantitative analysis. The participants of the study has used students from families headed family, a single mother. Also, the questionnaire has used a data collection tool and data analysis, has used statistical rate base. Therefore, the quantitative research method is suitable. Population sample for the study. The population for the study, single mother students in Tamil medium school in Kegalle region. For the purpose, students belonging to families with single educated mother in 5 Tamil medium schools were selected with the help of the principal and vice principal. 5 schools were selected, and from each school, 6 students were selected in groups of 7 from families headed by mothers who received separate education. The total number of students thus selected is 30. Discussion and findings of this study. How mother education level influence children's educational attainment. This objective above the table, based on the table above, 15% of the students disagreed with the statement that the mother's educational level is very helpful in doing their homework, while the 26.6% of students never agreed and 70% students have accepted. Next, only 16.63% of students agreed with the statement that my mother's educational level is very helpful in choosing the best environment for me to study. 33.33% of students have slightly accepted, and another 33.33% of students have not accepted. Another 16.6% of students were never accepted. 16.60% of students agreed with the statement that my mother's education level is very helpful in motivating me. 33.3% of students somewhat agreed. 33.3% of students disagreed, and 16.66% are never agreed. Next, how mother's occupation contributes to children's educational attainment. Examine the way in which a mother occupation influences the academic achievement of the student in single parent families, 50% students agreed with the statement that mother's occupation takes time to help students with their academic activities. 33.3% of students slightly agreed, 10% of the students disagree, and 6.6% students never agreed, not accepted. Also, 6.6% students agreed, 10% slightly agreed, and 15% disagreed with the statement that mother's place of work is helpful for my educational engagement. 33.3% students strongly disagree. Next, 6% of students agreed with the statement that my mother's working period did not hinder her involvement in my educational activities. 46.6% of students slightly agreed. 50% of students did not agree, and 6.60% of students did not agree to some extent. Next, how mothers' household income influence children educational attainment. When examining the influence of mother's income on the educational achievement of students in single mother families, 50% students agreed with the statement that my mother's high income influenced my education. 33.3% students slightly agreed, and 16.6% students did not agree. 33.3% of students agreed with the statement that my mother pays school fee when necessary. 23.3% of students slightly agreed, 43.3% of students disagreed, and 20% students strongly disagreed. 16.6% students agreed with the statement that my mother income is enough to buy school supplies, and 16.63% of students slightly agreed. 33.38% of students agreed, and 33.3 students do not agree some extent. Next, 16.6% of students agreed that my mother's income is sufficient for my schooling. 16.6% of slightly agreed, 33.3 disagreed, and 33.3% students strongly disagreed. Finding of this study, mother's educational level has direct influence on the educational attainment of students. The educational level of the mother is found to be low to contribute to the learning level of the students. The nature of the mother work means that the period of working is less likely to help the student learning. Low income of mother can influence their education. Recommendation of this study: additional support should be provided by teachers in school to raise the educational achievement of the student with single mothers. The principals and teachers should take appropriate guidance to provide opportunities for scholarship grants, etc. Finally, conclusion of the study: when examining the educational attainment disadvantage of students with single mothers, the mother's education level influence the choice of the best environment for the students to perform and motivate them. Also, the nature of the mother's occupation, place of occupation, and working hours also influence the educational attainment of students. Also, in this study, it can be seen that the low family income of single mother has had adverse effect on the education of these students. Therefore, the aim of this study is the raise of the educational achievements of children in families with single mothers. These are the bibliography. Thank you, all of you. Jazakumullah khaira.
Greetings. The topic of this study is the relationship between Syrian early childhood education teachers' autonomy, respect, engagement, and burnout in the war zone. My name is Dr. Maryam Sharifian. I am an associate professor of early childhood education and the executive director of Center for Innovation in Early Childhood Development at College of Education at James Madison University. I have done a few studies on teachers burnout, resilience, and trauma in Syria. Teachers were actively in the war zone in Syria, and the studies that previously have done taught me a lot of lessons and basically changed my whole perspective towards education and teacher education specifically, and the importance of focusing on teachers' autonomy and teachers' respect, and most importantly, self-accomplishment in teachers. So this study is an ongoing study, and the focus is to continue the outcomes of the previous study that demonstrated teachers' resilience was extremely high, considering that the teachers were in active war zone in Syria. Their burnout level was low and the trauma was low. And I was very shocked by the results, but the lesson that I learned and the lesson that I brought to the United States to create teacher trainings focused on resilience was significantly important and still is. The ongoing conflict in Syria has significantly affected the education sector, leading to disturbed classrooms, limited resources, and increased stress level among teachers. It is crucial to examine how factors such as autonomy, respect, engagement influence early childhood education teachers' burnout levels in a challenging context, considering that the war is expanding these days, and our world is just engaged in conflicts in every area. It's Ukraine and Russia, and now currently Palestine and Israel, and it's heartbreaking to see how many innocent people are getting killed. And one of the important highlights is how the education will continue in such active war zones and in the environment that safety is not given. It's every day is a fight for staying alive, but at the same time you can't stop thinking about what is the future of these children if they have access to the education or not. And Syria is a great example to show that during the active war, teachers never stopped teaching, and they continued their important impact on early childhood and their teacher education field. So the next step that I would like to emphasize on is theoretical framework. The theoretical framework that we are focusing on is self-determination theory. The theoretical framework that is emphasized in this study. This SDT emphasizes on the importance of autonomy, relatedness, and competence in promoting motivation, well-being, and engagement. This theory will provide a lens to understand the impact of autonomy and engagement on early childhood education teachers' burnout levels in the war zone. Methodology and methods of inquiry in this study. This study employed a mixed methodology research design, integrating quantitative and qualitative data collection and analysis. The target population include early childhood education teachers working in the war zone in Syria. I call it war zone because there is no peace, if even it's a given that we are considering it peace, but in Western part of the world, but the reality is something different, and living in that conflict area is very different from what we experience in the United States. And the political environment of Syria has been very challenging to understand the difference between curriculum sectors in independent governments and Bashar Assad's government. So I'm no expert in this area, and I cannot provide comprehensive understanding of it. But my data is collecting from. I don't have identification of my participants for the confidentiality and their safety. The surveys that was utilized for this study to gather quantitative data were focused on autonomy, burnout, and engagement amongst teachers. And there was a semi-structured interviews conducted to create more comprehensive understanding of the quantitative data. Quantitative data collection instruments that were used were Pearson and Hall's 1993 Teacher Autonomy Likert Scale Survey, consisting of 20 statistically validated statements, was used to collect data on autonomy. The Maslach Burnout Inventory, MBI, a survey consisting of 22 statements related to education field, was used to collect data on teacher burnout and assessed participants on 3 scales: emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and personal accomplishment. And lastly, the Schaffley and Becker's 2003 Work and Wellbeing Survey, a survey consisting of 17 job-related statements, was used to collect data on teacher engagement and assessed participants on 3 scales: vigor, dedication, and absorption. Additionally, as I briefly mentioned, semi-structured interviews were conducted to collect qualitative data on coping mechanism and individual experience with respect and recognition from parents, students, and colleagues. For the data analysis, quantitative data was analyzed using descriptive statistics and interfacial analysis, such as correlation and regression analysis. Qualitative data was transcribed, coded, and analyzed genetically to identify patterns and themes. This study is in progress. There are no final results. The researchers found that despite the immense challenges presented by the war, Syrian educators are highly engaged in their work. Although experience varied depending on demographic, many communities in Syria view jobs in the education field as vital and acknowledge the challenge that educators face. The respect and recognition, along with the personal values, contributes to high level of teacher engagement. Although Syrian educators are experiencing emotional and psychological strain, they manage to pour themselves into their work rather than burning out by utilizing several different strategies. And one of the most important words is religion and spirituality, peer community support, and creating a sense of normalcy within their classrooms. They emphasize that they're caregivers, and after the parents, they're immediate caregivers, and their role is not just teaching. They're acting as the psychologist, the parent, the nurse, any kind of role that you can, a friend. And this all different hats that they're wearing, and it's not just being a teacher in terms of just teaching every day. They have to consider themselves to support the child in all different aspects of the child, and with several different needs. Perceived teacher autonomy levels, of course, considering that this data is in progress, very low, but did not appear to negatively affect teacher experience. Since Syrian curriculum, especially now these days, the curriculum is very much changed, and it is influenced by political approach. So it depends on what part of Syria the curriculum that is utilized has a lot of approach towards creating that side of political governors infused into the curriculum, and it is highly structured, and there are lack of resources that decrease the opportunities for autonomy for teachers. Inside of this study, the insights from this study is the Syrian war has had a devastating impact on the country's education system, particularly in early childhood education. And Syrian teachers have been fighting for quality education for the past 11 years. This research investigating the early childhood teachers' autonomy, respect, engagement, and burnout in the war zone. By understanding these dynamics, I think policymakers and educators can develop targeted intervention to support teachers and enhance the quality of education for young children. And hopefully the study that, such as the study, not only brings attention to Syrian teachers, which right now, considering the war, going through several ongoing war, Syria is forgotten, and bringing the attention to people who are fighting, still fighting, and they're silenced is very important. And also the outcomes of their beautiful work and dedication to education throughout these years. They have created strong and significant strategies for creating an ongoing education system, and never gave up on education. They always, in my previous study, the first message was like, education is the solution to the war, and that's the next generation depends on education. And that's the only way that the children can save themselves. It's a strong approach towards the importance of and critical role of education in the lives. That learning from them, it would be an impactful resource for teachers in other parts of the world that they are struggling with the ongoing conflict, and they have to find a way under attack and active war to be able to continue their commitment to education. Thank you for your attention. This is my email address if you need to contact me.
Thank you for all our presenters. So we've had several presentations this morning. We had one from Indonesia regarding early marriages in Indonesia and some data that they presented on this study. Then we had Bushra from Turkey, who looked at the issue of women who wear the hijab in the private school. And then we had our presenter, Jaladeen from Sri Lanka. I think she's also with us. And then Maryam, who I don't see her with us online, so we will not have questions for Maryam. We will focus on the presentation from Indonesia, Turkey, and Sri Lanka. I just want you to all know, for our audience online and in person, that we received like more than 150 abstracts for this symposium, and we have to sit through all of them to choose the most relevant, the highest quality, the most current and thematic topics that are important for us. So it's not just that. And then imagine after that, all of those who get accepted have to record their presentations, and then we reviewed the presentations. Actually, some of them put the Sukaina did some of the reviews to make sure they are of high quality. And despite that, there are little technical things, and sometimes presenters miss some of the information that's pertinent to the study. I'm saying that so you realize how much work has been done in the background, but also to say that some of the presentations may sound that they are incomplete or missing some data or information on methodology, which I noticed in you. But that's to say that we are urging people to develop these into masters that we talked about yesterday. And when they do that, if there are missing pieces, they all need to come together to present a qualifying and then a high quality manuscript or review essay or whatever they decide to do. And so I have questions regarding methods, and that's why I'm giving this introduction to our presenters. The first one from Indonesia. I have some questions on the methodology, and then our Bushra from Turkey also on methodology, and then for Jaladeen from Sri Lanka. But before I go into the methodology, I would like to see if there are people who have questions to those three people. And do you have the microphone available? We'll start with Hanan, and I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Selma. Start with Hanan, Selma, and then Dr.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So I've got two questions for the first speaker. I think from Indonesia about child marriage or early marriage. Now, one of the things you talked about, one of the factors why parents would allow their children to get married in such an early age is maybe out of wedlock pregnancy. Now, that's an interesting thing to happen because automatically to be able to go into a sexual intercourse, get pregnant and all that, you should be in a certain age. So if you are kind of in that age where you understand what a sexual intercourse is, where maybe you could get pregnant, is it actually early marriage? Okay, what makes the law of early marriage? What is actually early marriage, and who decides on what is an early marriage? Okay, so that's my first question. My second question is for Ms. Bushra about when she talked about how schools actually kind of marginalize females with the scarf or with hijab. Now, I kind of had this kind of experience when I wanted to work abroad in this country, and they saw my CV, they reviewed my resume, we had an interview and all of that, but right at the end of the experience, they said, what about your hijab? Once you get here, what are you going to do? I said, I will just keep it. And they said, oh, well, it's not possible. So how about maybe you keep it, but in school, once you come to school, remove it. I said, I can't. They said, you know what? Once you come into the classroom, remove it. And I said, I can't. Then, okay, I had to let go. So it was kind of frustrating. So eventually they said that because I will be teaching English, I cannot be doing this because it's not representative. So my question for Bushra, is it like the same for all school subjects? I mean, regardless of what the teacher will be doing, Islamic studies, Arabic studies, whatever, she should not be wearing a hijab. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And it seems like our team from Indonesia is not online, so I will wait on that first question on early marriages. But Bushra, do you want to take this question about the topic and the content of whatever you're teaching and its relevance to hijab or no hijab, right? That's the question. Thank you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. It shouldn't actually, the thing is, so this kind of worldview that we've normalized, that women who wear the scarf can't be teaching certain subjects, English or whatever, it's not something to be normalized. And especially within Muslim societies, if we want to change the narrative within our own, in the outside world and how they look at us, shouldn't we be changing the narrative within our own societies, within our own schools? And so it doesn't matter what subject you teach. It shouldn't matter at all whether you teach English or maths, whether you wear the hijab or not. What you wear on your head is a reflection of your inner values, sure, but you're there to teach the curriculum. And so in my case, or the cases that I studied, it was for all subjects, English, schools, international schools where you teach maths and science as well. Yeah, I hope that answers it.
Thank you. Okay, and we go to Selma. Will you, Selma, first?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much again for the enriching and interest and insight you shared so far. Well, my question is for Dr. Bushra. In Turkey, how do policies regarding the hijab intersect with other aspects of identity, such as race or ethnicity within university or school settings? Thank you.
Okay, so the policy in Turkey is it is to allow private companies to private schools, if they are religious schools and if they are explicitly religious in their vision and mission, then they are allowed to discriminate. So, for example, you've got Islamic schools that have teachers in hijab and would prefer to hire teachers in hijab, but they are explicitly religious schools. The schools that I'm focusing on is there's about 6,000 in Istanbul alone. 6,000 in Turkey, excuse me. And these are private schools that have been here for a very long time, and they are elitist in their thinking and in their hiring policies. And the Turkish constitution doesn't allow actually for discrimination. What they're doing is actually it is illegal according to the constitution, but then you've got this clause in the law sector, in the laws, which says that private companies can hire according to the way they wish, but the overriding law is the one that says you're not allowed to discriminate based on religion. So that's why they do it underhandedly. Sorry, I don't know if I answered your question correctly.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I think Selma is nodding that you answered. Thank you. For Dr. Hayadin, so the question is, in terms of the research study you've done, are you defining early sexual intercourse at an early age in a different way than you are looking at early marriage as a state law, as a policy or a practice?
I'm sorry. I catch the question about the sexual intercourse happened before early marriage. Is that right?
Yes, and differentiate between both, because you could have sexual intercourse without being married and nobody knows about it. But you're talking about early marriage and becoming pregnant, and that leads sometimes into early marriage, right?
Actually, in some cases, there is a negative fact that happened to gear what so-called sexual intercourse before marriage, or before they come to the suitable or eligible age to marriage, and it was caused a pregnancy, and they had they banned to present the school, and they became dropout. Is that the answer needed for the question? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, maybe I will follow up with a broader question on your presentation and your study. I wasn't clear. You have conducted focus groups and talked to parents and maybe also students. I wasn't sure, but I have a question regarding like the themes that emerged from your focus groups. Were these 3 themes you mentioned, did they emerge from these focus groups, or where did they come from? Like this whole idea of linking early sexual intercourse, pregnancies with early marriage. Did this something come out of your focus groups as a recurring theme, or interviews, or can you say more about that?
Actually, it's from interview. We find the data from the parents the parents of the girl who acting of early marriage. As I said in my presentation, that the data came from the religious judicial court that have big data of early marriage in Indonesia, and the religious court, depending the data in the parental of the early marriage girl, and the parent said what the actual happening that caused the girl have to experience early marriage.
Yeah, and you know, this is my opinion, and we might, you know, disagree on this, but when you are doing a study on early marriages, don't you want to talk to those girls who got married early too? Not just the parents, but that's just a thought for you as you develop this, hopefully, into a more comprehensive manuscript. We will move to Abdullah. You had a question, no?
Bushra is not there.
Bushra is not here. She's here.
She dropped.
But she's here. She's just not on video. I see her. Here she is.
Bushra, thank you for your nice presentation. I'd like to ask you, hijab is allowed in government school in Turkey by the government?
Yes. So the hijab was banned in Turkey, in Turkish government schools and in the public sector. It was banned twice, in 1997 and in the early 1980s. But now it is allowed, yes. So you've got this big difference between the public schools having hijabi teachers, having hijabi students, and then you've got the mostly private schools who don't, yeah.
Thank you. And we have a question for actually also for Bushra, but let me ask Jaladeen a question before we go back to Bushra. I felt like I needed more information regarding, again, what you used, your survey that you used to talk to figure out whether there is a connection, a link, a correlation between single family household run by mothers, as I understood from your study, and the education of their children. Did you ask questions regarding socioeconomic status, wealth, jobs? And I know you went through some of the slides, so I apologize if I missed anything on jobs, but can you say more about that as well? And I don't know if you had you said mixed methods, did you, or was just a survey? How many people? Did you also do interviews? Did you learn something new from talking to these mothers, if you did that at all? Thank you. I'm asking you for your study on single family household run by mothers and the survey you've done. What was the sample size? How many women? Did you use mixed methods and looked at and talked to these mothers? Did you have data on socioeconomic status and their jobs, for example? Did that make a difference in the results? These kind of questions.
I use survey method, only quantitative. I choose 30% of sample from students. I selected 6 schools, and each and every school I selected 5 students from 5 students, single mother-headed family, and I gave questionnaire to fill it. And in job, some mothers are doing the jobs, and some mothers doing self jobs at home. Did you get it?
But didn't
But didn't enter.
interview parent.
But I didn't interview the parent. Did you get?
Yes.
Thank you very
yes,
much.
Yes, thank you. So how many students did you interview? Or did you run the survey?
30, I gave questionnaire 30 students.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
30, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then we have an online question, 2 questions for Bushra. Regarding whether others here, Salma again, for Bushra. And let me ask her the question I have, and then I'll turn it to you, and this will be our last question before our lunch break, okay? So Bushra, online, there's a question online asking whether the hiring of in private schools, the hiring of teachers who are in hijab or not in hijab, is it related to the socioeconomic status, the lack of symmetry in private schools? Meaning that, you know, private schools represent the elite. Is there any discrimination that is related to that in your opinion? And then I think you answered that question regarding the laws in Turkey that discriminate the other way around. Like, are there places where women in hijab, schools with women in hijab do not accept women who are not in hijab?
Okay, to the first question, I'd say it's both. So it's discriminatory to the woman who's experiencing it, obviously, but not to the schools themselves. They don't see it or view it as discriminatory. They see it as this is the secular worldview that was imparted by Atatürk to us, and we have to value and honor that above everything else. So they obviously, because this is more, I'd say, in the elitist group, which controls and dominates the whole cultural sphere, I'd say that so they don't see it as discriminatory at all. But the woman who experience it, they do. Okay, so obviously the person, the elite, he wishes to keep his lifestyle the way it is, you know, with Islam in the background, far away, and not seen within education or even in the public. It makes them uncomfortable. It's a deep issue within Turkish politics as well, and I'd say that people are very much aware of it. But me, as an outsider coming in, I was more, I think, enraged with the fact that it was accepted. So it really starts from there, and who's experiencing this discrimination as well. Yeah. And the second question I answered. Yeah.
Regarding reverse discrimination, women in schools with women who wear the hijab and hiring someone who's not wearing the hijab.
The reverse situation is usually it's not the same, because you have to say whether your school is an Islamic school or a secular, non-religious affiliated school. So if it is Islamic, of course, you would then apply the rules of having teachers in hijab, preferably. I mean, there are non-teachers in it. There are teachers without hijab as well. But then if you're a secular school, you should be showing everybody, because now you have no religion, and that's not the main focus. It's education. So why don't you represent everybody in the society? Why are you blocking a large component of society out, essentially?
Okay, Salma?
My question is for you, Bushra. What efforts are made to address the potential psychological and emotional impact on students when they're religious. Attire is restricted within the academic environment. We saw the example of Hanan when she applied for an English teacher and she had a problem according to her outfit. So thank you so much.
Okay. So here's the thing, right? When I was doing this research and while I'm still going deeper into it, I realized that actually this is not just, it is a Turkish problem at the moment for me, but it is actually a problem within Islamic and Muslim societies as well, where the woman with the scarf is seen as somewhat as someone who is hindering progress or modernity or something like that. You know, there's some kind of underlying currents as well. I mean, if you apply to a school in, for example, Dubai or Qatar with your scarf as well, you get a lower salary than somebody who would be without the scarf and more Eurocentric looking for the same job with the same qualifications. So something's going on here. And I'm looking within Muslim society specifically because it's not that I can understand it if it's coming from France or the USA, but within Muslim society, you know, I really don't understand it. And no, there is nothing in place to help students cope with this dichotomy, actually, that they would experience if they wish to wear the hijab, and it's a very secular kind of school. Yes.
All right, thank you. And Dr. Hayadin, do you want to answer the question regarding interviewing, talking to women who were involved in early marriages? Why is this outside the scope of your study?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to check with you before we conclude whether you want to say something about why did you not interview, or maybe you did not have access to women who got married early and you focus only on the parents. What's the rationale for that?
Yeah, but I don't get the question. What's about?
Okay, it's okay. We can leave that for later, and we can think about that, and hopefully we will communicate regarding this and other results and everyone's presentation. Once you hopefully, inshallah, submit for publication as well, we will communicate around these kinds of issues. I don't have, Maryam is not online to answer the question regarding Syria. But I want to thank everyone who has been with us online as well.
Still 4 minutes. Can I just say something?
You have a question?
I just wanted to add a comment, but I can see there is 4 minutes.
3 minutes. You didn't even raise your hand. I didn't see you. If you did, I'm sorry. Nobody had their hand raised.
No, it's my fault, basically.
No, go ahead.
Thank you. These presentations were very thought-provoking, and I think I really want to commend them for provoking, stimulating inquiries, further inquiries. And what some of the presentations also show me the colonization of the mind, right? So what Bushra is really clearly colonization of the mind through seeing our own selves through Eurocentric perspective of backward and advanced through the case study of hijab. So I think really good. Now I just wanted to make 2 comments, but as an invitation to think further. Now, in one of the presentations, they said that education shouldn't be ideological. It should about promoting, you know, economic growth and. But those are also human capital ideologies. Can education ever be neutral? Whether neutrality itself is a political ideology. You know, so I think an education may mean many things for many people are developing, you know, freedom, agency, environmental justice. So these are all ideologies. So the question is, which ideologies? So I think just just an invitation to one of the speakers not to see education as something neutral, but any position is a position and an ideology. Secondly, there was a discourse about resilience.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with the discourse of resilience, it puts the onus on people themselves to, like for the problem that's created through border geopolitical economic. So the discourse of resilience is deliberately pushed by the World Bank, by OECD, by powerful actors to put the onus back on people to suffer and suffer with more efficiency.
Totally agree.
So I
And
think
especially, sorry, with children, we call it in Arabic sumud. And if you watch
Yes.
all the kids from Gaza, they
Yeah.
talk about sumud. We are
yes,
like, we're resilient. But how can you ask a child to be resilient in this situation? We're asking too much of the
Yeah.
children.
yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Thank you. Thank you for your insight. Okay. Last call. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. And apologies to the team in Indonesia. I don't think we were able to hear each other well, but thank you for your participation.
Yeah,
and for
thank
your
you.
insight
Thank
and
you.
hard work on your
Thank you.
research.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.